Hi, I'm Author Assist, proud sponsor of the 3-act structure show on the GoIndieNow platform. Author Assist offers affordable services and one-on-one training to independent authors. I help them from brainstorming an idea to publishing and the promotion and marketing of the book. I have 2 podcasts, Narrations by KK and Behind the Pen. I'm the host of the radio show Author Assist on the Artist First Radio Network, and I'm also a multi-award-winning filmmaker. Love creating book trailers. I'm also a graphic designer and offer at least another 20 services that will help authors navigate and stand out. If you're a new author and you're holding the copy of your book in your hands, thinking, now what? That's when you need Author Assist. Contact me for a service sheet at kgantasauthораssist@gmail.com.
When we deconstruct the elements of story and its structure, whether you acknowledge 3 acts or not, our focus shifts to one aspect that connects us all, the characters. Since the dawn of storytelling itself, there has always been one side's hero and one side's villain. Now, where you may fall in who you support or relate to might shift, but it's always there. However, these days, it's even more layered and complicated. When we have been able to nuance and finite roles and involvement, gray the black and white. It's that examination we will be doing this season. And we'll be doing it in 3-act structure. No matter their impact, friend or foe, introducing us to our main character, enhancing a scene, forcing an action, or being that comfort at that moment when it's most needed. They come in, and they go, leaving their impression. They are the Tertiary.
Hi, I'm Jane Taylor. I write under J.E. Taylor. I write paranormal romance, paranormal suspense, urban fantasy, supernatural suspense, anything supernatural, basically. That's me.
Hi, I'm Lily Luchesi. I'm the USA Today bestselling author of urban fantasy, paranormal mysteries, and as Samantha Calcott, both erotic and sweet romance. And I'm also the co-founder of Partners in Crime Book Services, where I currently provide promotional, editing, and graphic design services.
So I'm David Green. I'm obviously very prepared for this. I am from Galway in Ireland, also from Manchester in the UK, and I am the author of the dark epic fantasy series Empire of Ruin and the urban fantasy noir Hell in Haven.
Hi everyone, Karina Kantas here. I am the author of 14 books called and I relate to dark romance, dark mafia romance, and dark MC romance. I'm also a podcaster, booktuber, award-winning filmmaker, and entrepreneur.
Hi, my name's Andrea Dreiling. I'm the author of The Burning People. This is my debut novel. It's a Southern Gothic, and I'm currently working on my second novel, which is going to be a dystopian.
Tertiary characters. For people who don't know what a tertiary character is, I'm sure I had to look it up once upon a time, but it's basically the third in line in a character's arc. They're typically the character that I call them scene stealers, because I think most of the time they come in, they steal the scene, and all right, cool, but they've also have a pivotal role in the maintaining the story arcs and changing things in perspective. A lot of people who recommend in writing tertiary characters recommend how much you need to build them and create them. And so I want to kind of start there and see how much you're thinking about the tertiary characters. Is it just the fact that you're thinking about all your characters and you want to give them all three dimensions and make them as fulfilled as possible? Are you thinking about specific roles when you're creating them? How do you approach, that aspect of the tertiaryness?
I don't. No, the only ones that have a role in my books are the main two characters, basically, and then the little ones that fall behind. No one has a role of a third person or a scene sealer. So whether the book's got that character in it, I'll have to figure that out, because I didn't write it in. I know that. That would be the last thing I'd be thinking of.
And completely opposite of Karina, I specifically love tertiary characters and include as many as possible when I can. My latest one in the Page Papillon Paranormal Mysteries is the police captain, Captain Alvarez. And his prime role is basically to make Paige's life hell and try and block everything she does, despite the fact that he's one of the only police officers that knows the paranormal exists. And Paige's job is to return the favor and drive him absolutely up the wall. But in order for his character to work, I had to sit there and wonder, why is he the way he is? He only has a few scenes, a few lines in every scene that he's in. And he's maybe in 2 scenes per book so far. But he needed to have a very specific purpose for why he behaved that way. And sitting there, I'm like, oh, I know why you're like this. And eventually the readers will too, but in order to make them be successful and to be as interesting as the ones, we read about and we grew up seeing on TV, we do have to sit there and make them as 3-dimensional as our main characters.
Yeah, I would agree with Lily to an extent. And it's funny because one of my series seems quite similar to yours as well, so we might just approach it in the same kind of way. In my urban fantasy one, which is, again, he's a paranormal investigator, and there's other people that realize what's going on and everything, but it's written from his point of view. So there is a lot more, because it is like an investigation kind of thing that he's doing. He is meeting a lot of different people that have defined roles that are tertiary characters. But as you say, they have to feel fully formed when you meet them, because you don't have the time to develop them in the story as much as that. They have to appear fully developed as they're there, because they have a role to perform. And there's nothing saying that you can't take those characters and, when you're doing a different story, and move them around to be like a secondary character or give them a different kind of role. They are still there to be played with. But I would kind of so in this particular series, there's a few kind of cast support characters that would be tertiary characters, and I have their whole kind of background fleshed out, that maybe no one will ever see it. Maybe I will never ever use a lot of it, but it's there, and I try to put that through their experience as well, because they need to feel believable. Because like, if my character, the main character of the story, is going to these people for like advice or for sometimes for antagonistic reasons as well, they have to feel like they're believable, and not just been created just for that actual scene.
I agree with that. I think the tertiary characters need to be just as believable as all your other characters. But I think the difference for me when I'm writing tertiary characters is that it starts with how I want them to function in the larger story, because I feel like they oftentimes provide kind of color to the setting or motivation for your main character to move the plot forward. So oftentimes I think of what their function is, and from there I think of who they might be and what their motivations might be. So it's kind of like a top-down approach.
For me, in the current series I'm writing, Shades of Night, I actually do have tertiary characters instead of just the main characters. And I had to develop a relationship between the main characters and them, so I had to develop them a little bit more. So it's been interesting, because normally I just focus on the main characters, and the ancillary ones aren't as built out as the main characters. But it's been interesting, and they do absolutely provide the levity at times, especially in fun scenes that they walk in on.
Nice. The interesting thing about flushing them out too, I'm curious from a writing process perspective, if there is a carefulness in which you do that to a certain extent. Are you tiptoeing a lot more with these kind of characters and what they're doing because they are in only certain scenes for you, and they need to be impactful, remembrant. You're trying, at least that's what your goal is, your aim is, I would assume. So, are you? Is there a lot more to it? Do you edit that a lot more? Are you careful? What is the how do you maintain a balance within your process?
Well, what I do when I'm writing is I completely pants everything. So I write whatever the characters tell me to, whichever character it is. And when I go back through my content edits before it goes, to my editor, the only things I take out is if it's something that instead of being interesting or possibly a bit of a mystery about the tertiary characters, in case it might confuse the reader, that's the only thing that I'll remove. But, and Joe, we've talked about this one before. In the Paranormal Detective series in book 5, I introduced a character named Sean. He was supposed to have a few scenes and leave. And he wound up getting his own novel. So, be very careful with your tertiary characters. They can get extremely bossy if you let them. You got to control them a little bit more than I control mine.
It's an interesting balancing act because that is true as well. Because what Lily just said, sometimes you really kind of become attached to these characters because I think you're allowed to. I sometimes use the say let my hair down, which is not the thing that I should be saying, but you can do that. Straighten my beard out with these characters, where you can kind of just like have a little bit of fun with them, and you do kind of fall in love with them a little bit. But it's a balance that because you have to try and make them believable and make sure they exist in the world, but you don't have to be. And it's probably best that you're not as subtle with them as you would be with other characters, because you want them to stand out and you want them to have a purpose, and you want the reader to understand what that purpose is for what his character is trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think with any character in a book, there's an amount of background that the author knows about that character that will never make it into the book. And with tertiary characters especially, I think you have to exaggerate their superficial characteristics because, like David was saying, they need to stand out and they need to make an impression quickly. Unlike primary or secondary characters where you might do more flashbacks or more work building them up as a three-dimensional person with a lot of the characteristics below the surface coming up and being illuminated.
You when Lily said about one of the characters talking and then having its own book, it just clicked. In Lawless Justice, she's in one chapter, and she's a lady of one of the presidents of a outlaw motorcycle club, and she doesn't like the kittens, who are the ones that are the main people in the book's about. She doesn't like them, and none of the females in that outlaw gang like them. So there's going to be a massive fight later on, and there is. But she's only mentioned, her name's Ford, she's only mentioned a couple of times. There's a fight, and then that's the end of it. And then she gets her own book, Road Rage, which is all about her after she's escaped from the outlaw motorcycle club, and she decides to live a quiet life. But that doesn't go quite as planned. But she's definitely one of those characters that had a small but important part in one of the books, and then just had a whole book to herself.
Yeah, my favorite tertiary character I ever wrote was from the Steve Williams series, and he went on to the Ryan series, Detective O'Keefe. He was a real dick. I'll put it that way. But he challenged the Ryan family a lot. Didn't really fall for their antics, and he had some really good lines in the Ryan Chronicles too when he showed up. Usually there was a problem when he showed up.
So the balance issue. Okay, so you all brought up detectives and stuff like that. So I feel like that's the gateway and the opening that I needed to bring up one of my favorite things about characters and creating stories around characters. And yes, I'm going to mention it. It's going to be the other thing that follows this series around. And it seems like this character arc really lends itself to red herring. It really lends itself to being the spark plug for a shift or a change. Is that how you like to use a character like this, or is there a different impactful way? Is there something that you love, that you favorite when using a tertiary character?
Kind of leads, the reader to know that, oh my God, the shit's gonna hit the fan when they step in, because it's not usually a pleasant, at least in my books,